Okay, let's take a look at project number one. I'm going to share my screen and we're going to go into Excel. Okay, so your job in this project is to create 5 graphs in Excel, right in this spreadsheet that you have, this workbook, I guess it's called, because it contains 5 different tabs down here, actually 6. So the first one is the screen here that you're reading, the overview. It tells you, describes the graphs that you have to construct and some of the things that you should include on your graph, like a title and axes labels and axes values. But in addition to just constructing the graphs, you'll also be asked to provide a summary of each data set, of each graph at the end of it. Say 3 or 4 interesting things about the data, the trends that you observe. When you're done constructing the graphs and writing your summaries, or I suppose you could write your summaries in Word, you should copy the graphs in Excel and paste them into Word. Then also include your summaries after each graph. And once you get all the graphs and your summaries into a Word document, then save that whole file as a single PDF containing all the graphs and the summaries. I ask that you send me a PDF because a lot of times we're sending these documents from different versions of the software from different computers. And a lot of times, if you don't save it as a PDF, it arrives to me in a Word document and everything is shifted and moved and the graph isn't as you intended me to see it. So save as a PDF and then send me the PDF file with all your graphs and summaries and this workbook where you created your graphs. I will go in and check each one of your graphs to make sure that you in fact did construct them. This project is due Wednesday at midnight, February 10th. All right, let's take a look. The first graph refers to the US COVID deaths by age, and that's this tab down here. And so I'm going to click on this tab. And there you see a graph that I constructed. It's got lots of bells and whistles on it, and you can make it look pretty like this if you like. What I'd like you to do is just to create a graph like this and just make sure that the slices are labeled with the age categories and then the percentage of each category and an appropriate title. So you've got your title, you've got each slice labeled, and you've got the percentage. You'll see these percentages on here correspond to the percentage here in this column. And 32.7, about a third of those who die from COVID are 85 and older. 27.5% of those who die from COVID are age 75 to 84. And you can see the other ones. So certainly you can see older folks die from COVID at a much higher rate than the younger folks. Very few deaths. Only 260 deaths for people age 0 through 17, children, in other words. So when you want to construct a pie chart, a graph like this, you highlight the age and you highlight the column you want. We don't want this column, we'll address it later, but if you select the ages and basically everything that you want to appear on the graph, you highlight, and then where you insert graphs are up here at the insert key. So go there and then click on the icon that looks like a pie chart and you see you got versions of it. I prefer just the basic one, and there it is. So it looks a lot like this. There's the pie chart has been rotated a little bit. Instead of labels on the slices, you have the categories down here in a legend, which is fine. And I'm going to enlarge this a little bit so you can see some of the things that you can do. And just make it bigger so you can see it. That's good. And what we're going to do, here's a title. I'd like to just delete this one because for the title, I would prefer to go over here to chart design. And when you click on chart design, you'll see over here a lot of the things that you need for your graph are over here. So you have to click on chart design and then over here add chart element. And so what I want to do is I want to add a title, not a title, but I could do this and put it where I want, but I think it's just as easy to come over here and insert, and over here you're going to see text, and you want to look for the one where you insert a text box. Then you can come over here and create your text box over here somewhere. And while inside, if you want to do anything like I turned the text into yellow and I turned the background into black. If you want to do that, that's these two keys right here. So if I click inside, oops, okay. So I'm going to insert a text box and then just put it over here somewhere and then just start typing fraction of all US, blah, blah, blah. And you can put the title there. Now, if you want to enlarge the text, what I like to do is to select these buttons. This puts it in the middle of the box and this centers it. This changes the background to all black. And this changes the text to yellow. So you can see it. I can enlarge the font here as well. Maybe if I put it up to 24, and then I can readjust the size of the box so that the title is up there. Here, if you want to put these labels on, you click on one slice and it selects all of them. And then if you either control click or right click, if you have a PC, you can then add the data labels. And you can see the numbers that it adds. I'm going to click on one of these boxes. Notice it selects them all. I can increase the size to 18. I can change the color to yellow. It doesn't work very well outside the box. So if I want to change those, I can change those individually. You click on one of these to select them all. And if you really want to select just one of them, you just click it like that. So that one's highlighted. And then you can come over here and turn the text into black so you can see it outside the box. Now it turns out that I really don't like these numbers. The numbers that you're seeing are the actual deaths. Those are the numbers over here in this section. And so I would prefer to have the percentages on here. Notice the percentages are in column C and the raw numbers are in column B. So I'm going to go in here in the graph and I'm going to, again, right click or control click, and I want to select the data. And, these same types of windows come up all the time. I'm interested in changing this Y values business from column B to column C. So all my data are in the range from C5 to C. And then when I come in here, and this window is going to be very similar for a lot of windows. Notice we have two series here. And if I just delete this one out, which is the first one, it'll immediately, I think, default to the next one. So when I say okay, then come in here and add the data labels. Now you'll have the percentages. The other thing I can do is just go into the Y values and change them from this range, which is B5 to B12. I can change it to C5 to C12. All right, other bells and whistles. I'm going to click on those, and then I'm going to right click and go format those data labels. And when you format the data labels, you can come over here and add the category name. And I like to put the separator, instead of just a comma, I like to put it on the next line. So you can see that the age and then let me enlarge it a little bit and then change the color to white. Yeah, so you can see that we put the age, the label of the slice first, and then the corresponding percentage. So the age of 55 corresponds to the percentage who have died from COVID, 32.7. Okay, what else? You can see these up here. I have to change manually so that they have the black text. Otherwise, you're not going to see them. And with those leader lines there, you can move them wherever you want. Let's see, there's the other one, black. So I've got them there. And, with a text box too, you can move this title around here somewhere. I'd like to have these over here. So to do that, I want to rotate these slices. So again, I'm going to format the data labels. And you can see the leader line is is here. I want the leader line, so these lines attached to the labels. Let's see. Yeah, so if you go into this icon here, you can change the angle. And if you increase this a little bit, I'll take it to 45 and see what happens. Oops, I got the wrong thing highlighted. All right, let's try this again. So this is formatting the data labels, and that's not what I wanted. Okay, so let's come over here and let's undo that. All right. All right, so what I want to do is I want to take these slices and I want to rotate them a little bit. So I'm going to format the data series and yeah, let's see, angle of the first slice. So what this would do if you change this, and let me just go to 90 degrees and see what happens here, something close to 90. What happens is it changes and it rotates all of these slices to the sides. And we have more room on the side than we do in the top. So anyways, then you can move these about. And yeah, this one here, I'll move down a little bit. And then this one here, just to create a little bit of space. Then it's pointing at the right one. So, and notice down here, this legend, I don't need it anymore because I already have the slices labeled. So I'm going to delete that. Oops. If you ever do that, just do undo. And let's see, I want to select this title only and delete it. There we go. Yeah, and so it pretty much has all the features. I did go back and change some of the colors here. So if you wanted to change some of these colors, notice they're all highlighted now. But if you click on it again, it selects just this one, and you can come in and you can change the shading. All right, so the initial graph, you just highlight the data and then insert the circle graph. All the rest of this is just bells and whistles. Okay, so this is the first graph. And the second one says to go see the US cases and deaths by rate. They're right in order. Here's that one. These are cases and deaths by race. And we want to construct a multiple bar graph. So I'm going to click on this one. You can see I use different colors, but I have this nice little graph here. And maybe this is something that you might want to consider, creating a graph like this. But let me show you. Here is the race ethnicity data, the different races and ethnicities here. These are the number of cases so far, and these are the percentage that correspond to each racial group. So we would say that about 55.76 or 56% of the cases, these are cases, are infected white folks that we would call white and non-Hispanic. So we've got really the Hispanic Latinx group. That's the ethnic group. And then we do know that there are Black Hispanics and white Hispanics, but when they aggregated this data, they summarized this data, they said white only, no Hispanics. So the Hispanic, Latina, Latinx group will include both Blacks and whites. So there's a component of race in there, but normally they would identify as Hispanic. All right, now, so this one is about, this table over here is about the number of cases. And these are just the people that are infected. Now over here, we have the number of deaths. And so also by race. So, and we're going to put these in one graph, and we're going to use the percentages. So you can see that I have cases here with all the corresponding percentages for the cases. And then I have the deaths, not the actual numbers, but I've got the percentages over here. So if I just highlight the race and ethnicity categories here, along with the two percentages that I want to plot, I can come up to insert, go in the middle here where you're going to see all these different charts, and select the one that looks like a bar graph. And it's this one here. Now, before I do that, I do want to point out one thing, and that is the number of deaths, and this was on January 23rd. We know that there are over 400,000 deaths in the United States already. And so this data that you're seeing here does not include everybody, because When they report, they don't always report the race, or they don't know what to report, or the data is missing, or it has some kind of an error in it. But we do have 228,000, over 228,000 deaths out of the 400. So it's a huge sample. And so it's most likely, almost certainly, a representative sample. And you can see over here the number of cases. I think we're up around 27,000 cases now. And you can see they really don't do a very good job of recording race there. All right, so let's see the graph, highlight the categories and the two percentages, and come up here and insert a bar graph. Select the one that looks like a multiple bar graph. And look how much this graph looks like, this graph down here already. So there's some things that you might want to change about this. And so you can see, at least in terms of the bars, they're all listed there. The categories are fine. There's a title that you need to add here. I don't like the double zeros on the axis, so I'm going to go over to the axis, and again, I'm going to, that's either control click or it's right click, and this is an axis, and we want to format it. So somehow I missed that. Do it again, and we want to format the axis. And as this menu comes up over here, I want to go all the way down to number, and the decimal places I want is 0. So notice when I change that to 0, these are, they get rid of the 0.00. And to change the font, I'm going to go up here to the home and then change that to maybe an 18 font to make it a little bigger. I don't have much room down here to enlarge these categories, and so I might just leave them at that same size. I'll come up here and delete this title out, and then as before, insert a text box and just put it in here somewhere, and percentage of all cases, ... deaths. All right, again, as before, what happened here? I got to make sure I get in there. Okay, I'm going to select to center and to put it in the middle, increase the font, and change the background and the color. And you can play around with this as much as you like. So put a title in there. The way I got cases and deaths, so if we come back down here, and if I do control click, or I'll remember selecting the data, up here it says the, let's see, where is the legend? Both series, we want to keep both of those. Horizontal axis label, there's no change there. Show empty cells as. All right, let's change the chart range from what it is. Let's go include the cases and the deaths. So let's just move everything up to include the race, ethnicity, cases, and deaths. And what I want you to focus on down here is, instead of this saying cases and deaths, it says series 1, series 2, these guys, these generic names. So one of the ways you can do it is you can say, okay, series 1 is cases, and then go to click series 2, and that's deaths. And then when you say okay, then those will be labeled down there. You can even take it and move it around if you have a lot of empty space. You can do this. You can change the size of it. Go ahead and do this menu here. All right, so maybe we would put it over here and maybe stack them instead of, I don't like that line going through the middle, so I might fill it with white paint so that it sets the background. So it's kind of hovered there. And you can move that around. And to get the bars next to one another, just go ahead and click on one of them and then right click. And let's format the data series. And when you come over here, the overlap you want is 0. There it is. So if the overlap is 0, then these bars will not overlap and they'll be right next to one another. Notice you have a big gap. And right now this gap is over 200% larger than the width of the bar here. So if you want to make these a little bit bigger, you can shrink the bar or the gap width down to about, I think 50% is probably good. There's somewhere in there. Anyways, it makes the bars a little wider and the gaps between them a little smaller. Notice these percentages on here. This is something that you might want to do when you select one of the bars, the blue bars, it changes them all, or it selects them all. So then if you right click or control click, you have a Mac, you can then add the data labels. And then after you add the data labels, click on one of them, it selects all of them. And you can do, again, a control, and you want to format those data labels. And the way that you can format them is what I like to do. If you want to get the orientation like this, I would go here and the text direction, and I would maybe have it going up this way. I don't like the multiple decimals there, it just clouds things, but I do like the percent. And I also want to put this inside the bar. So when you come over here, this thing that looks like a bars, we're going to put those labels inside the end of the bar. So they jump inside. I'm going to turn them white so that you can see them better, and then enlarge the size, maybe 16. The other thing I don't like is the number of decimal places. So down here at number, I'm going to change to a percent, and then 0 decimal places. So there you have it. Now I'd want to do the same thing to the orange bars. So I'm going to click on the orange bars. Maybe I'll paint that a different color so you can see how that is. Let's go a solid fill. And that color, we could do that color, or yellow, like U of M, or something else. All right, so whatever you want, you can change the color. And now all of these bars are highlighted here. And so the next thing I'm going to do is to add, control, click, or right click, and I want to add the data labels first. And then I'm going to click on those data labels and then right click and then format the data labels. And so I'm really going to repeat what I did before. Change the text. Put the data labels inside the bar, change it to white, change it a little bit larger, and then go down to number and reduce the number of decimal points. Okay, so there you have it. And you've got labels, and we're making it look more and more like our graph. And you can see it, different colors, but pretty much very similar. The only other thing you might want to do is see these guys are kind of cut off in here. So what you might want to do is when you click on one, it selects them all, but then click again and move this one maybe outside and then change the ink to black so that you can see it a little better. And you'd have to do all of these kind of the same way. It's a little tedious, you have to do it for each one. And for each one, you have to change the ink color, but it doesn't take too long. Okay. And then we would do the same thing to these. Take them out a little higher. Where are you? All right. Almost done. Just got to change the ink color for each one of these. So I like them inside the bar, the labels inside the bar, unless they just don't fit. And then we'll just put them on the outside. The other thing is that these are not really 0. So I think what I'm going to do is format the data label there and then change to 1 decimal place. And then you'll see that it now rounds it to 1 decimal place. So you can see that it's not 0. And I'll do the same for this one here. Format the data label and change the percentage display to be 1. And then there you see the graph. All right, I haven't done it yet, but I'll show you what you need to do. Once you get this picture, this graph, you'll want to come up here. If you have this graph here highlighted, come up here and where it says copy. You don't want to copy because copy just selects all the individual components of the graph. You want to copy it as a picture. And then it says as shown on the screen, and then you say okay. Then when you go to your document, just leave a couple of spaces and then paste that graph in there. And so this is how you take the graph from Excel and dump it into a Word file. You're going to want to do that for each of your graphs. So we can go back to the first one there. We can click on this graph, come up here, copy as a picture, as shown on the screen, go back to our Word document, and type that one in. And notice that it's a picture now. So the individual components of it are not going to be moving anywhere. All right, so we have two of our graphs in there. And let's go take a look at the third one. Back to the overview. The third one, case rates. All right, so these are case rates and not death rates, right? But as we know, there's a certain percentage. It might be 0.45% of all folks who get infected with the coronavirus will die from it. We don't know what that number is now, but it's probably pretty close to 0.45. And number 3, you're just looking at the case rates because, and so you can infer that whatever path the case rates take, about 2 to 3 weeks later, the deaths will follow. So it's what we try to do then for prevention is just not to get it. But these are case rates in the world countries. And so I'm going to go down here and you can see I created this graph a little earlier. I'll just get this out of the way for now. But you want to create something like this. And you can see with the data here that these dates go from, now the pandemic in the United States, I think we had our first casualty right around March 1st. And it grew after that. But we didn't have many deaths in those first couple of months. You know, we had a lot, but not as many as we have now. And so this goes from June 20th in the summer all the way to just a couple days ago, the 23rd of January. So it's got all the active data here. Now these are case rates. Clearly, if you live in the US, we have many more people, so we're going to have many more cases. So what these data here are, these are death rates per, I believe these are case rates per 100 million in the population. So if you had, say, 78, that's the number of cases in the United States on that day alone. It's not 77 cases, but it's 77 per million. And in the United States, we have 328 million. So if you multiply this number by 328, you'll get the number of cases on that particular day. So we did this for 5 countries, and then we looked at the world average and charted for Spain, Ireland, Canada, Japan, and the US. I just selected, you know, there's data on websites where you can get this information about any country. But so I selected those 5 countries and then the worldwide average. And you can see the worldwide wide average is down here in terms of the number of cases. And many of the countries that we're looking at have many, many more cases than the average. You also see Japan down there at the bottom. Japan's done a pretty good job of keeping the pandemic under control. And if you look at Ireland here, you know, right in here was Christmas. You go a couple of weeks after, and of course, they're very Catholic in Ireland, in Protestant. But they all believe in Christmas, and so they believe in large family gatherings, and probably this is what you see for Christmas right here. It's big, and then they started going down after people got back to work. So, and you can put some fancy stuff in it like this one. I just added an additional piece here. And then this is the title, a little bit longer. Over here, make sure you label cases per million. There's not a whole lot we need to do here because those are obviously dates. So it would seem redundant to write the word date underneath them. But let's take a look at how you would do that. Let's select the date. And I think what we're going to do is we're going to select the titles as well and go ahead and select all of the data, going all the way down to the 1st of January 23rd. There it is. So select that data. And what we're after here is a time series plot. So again, we come up here to insert, and we insert something that looks like an XY plot. And this is the one. And the very first option is the one you want. And notice that already you're seeing a graph that looks kind of like mine without the bells and whistles. You don't have the, all right, we'll enlarge it up a little bit. All right, but pretty much the 6 graphs are there. The dates are good. Notice that you have the legend down here. I achieved each one of these with a text box. And so you can add all the components. Notice over here, cases per million, you'll want to add that. All right, so let me click on these, go to home, and then enlarge those numbers as I've done. I'm not going to enlarge these because there's not a whole lot of space for them. So to get the United States here, I'll show you how I did that. Once again, we're going to insert a text box, and I'll just make it smaller here. And then inside, I'm going to write the United States. And also, as before, I'm going to put it in the middle and center it. And if I want purple, I can go and color inside purple and then change the text color to be white. All right, now, if you want to enlarge it, you can enlarge it here as well. All right, there it is. Now this little thing rotates it. So if I want to put it right here, I would maybe rotate it a little bit and then click on the outer part of the box and just do something like that. So there you have the United States. You can do that with each of them. Insert a title as we've done before. These guys here, if you want to play around with one of these, you can come up here and insert. I believe it's in shapes. And then if you scroll down, you'll see these callouts. I think this is the one I selected. So you just come in here somewhere and draw this big guy. And then you can just type in here, here is my text. You can change the shape fill to a orange or to a yellow like I have. You can change all the text to black if you like. Oops, where are you? Maybe I have to go home to do that. And you can center it, put it in the middle as before. Then you can take this bottom piece and just, okay, and when you're done, again, what we're going to do is we're going to click on the outside of the graph, come up here, copy as a picture, as it appears on the screen, go over to the Word document, second graph, and paste it. And there it is. All right, so that's the third graph. The fourth graph are vaccination rates in the United States. And the vaccination rates for each state. So there's even data on how many people got vaccinated in the state and what percentages of the entire group. All right, so what we want here is a box plot, and the data that you have in this fourth tab, vaccination rates in the US states down here. What I did is I just went to this site, the CDC site, where they have this data, and I just looked at all of the factors that they have, and you can see that I've hidden some columns here that you can see, but the one you're after is how many vaccinations have been administered in this state per 100,000 in the population. So if we turn everything into a rate like this, then we can compare the different states to figure out, which one had the which state was vaccinating the highest percentage of their of their um, of their population. So generally, the graph you want is this box and whiskers plot in the middle. All of these other things that I have around the edges, these are all text boxes that I've added on. Okay, so for this one, to create this box and whiskers plot, we're going to select the data. And for this one, I don't think they're going to want you to select the, I mean, you could select both of them, but then get rid of one of the series. So I think it's easier just to, select the numbers themselves. And you should find 50 numbers here corresponding to the 50 states. And how well are these states doing in terms of vaccinating their citizens? So again, we're going to come in here and we're going to insert. Turns out that the box and whiskers plot, there's no graphic here, but it's inside this one here. This is the histogram menu. So when you click on that, you'll see the box plot down here. So just click on it, and then you can see that this graph is pretty much, at least the middle part of it, black part of it. All right, so it looks something like that. You see this outlier up here. When you hover on it, it tells you what the value is, so you can track it down and find out what country that is. But here's another one that's what we would call an outlier. And then here's the what would be the max without these outliers. And then you've got the quartiles, third quartile, median, first quartile, and minimum. So in a 5-number summary, we actually indicate each one of these. And then Alaska is the max. So Alaska appears to be doing the best. But if you want to label this point, which you should, you could just call it Alaska. And you can do this with a text box. You can do each of these with a text box, each one of these. And you can change this to the color black if you want. And over here, we can insert a text box and then just start typing in it. Now, sometimes on our graphs, we want to highlight 12.9% or the maximum or something like that, and even describe what it means. All right, so again, we're going to center it and put it in the middle. And if you want, you can change the box to, what color is that? Blue, and then the white ink. Oops, I got to highlight what I want. Turn white, right, there it is. And you can do something similar for the others. These numbers here look to be a little bit bigger, 18. This is one where I'd want to come up here to chart design, insert a chart element, the axis, the primary vertical axis. That's what I want. It puts it in there. We'll triple click on that title, and then vaccinations administered per 100,000 in the population. And then go home again, where I can change the font to something larger like 18. There it is. Now you might be interested to know where these percentages come from. And you can see 12.9% of residents are vaccinated. So let me just show you where that comes from. This 12,885 individuals are vaccinated for every 100,000. So what they've done is they've given you a rate. So let me just show you what that rate is. I'm going to take that number, 12,885, and divide by 100,000. And there's the number. And then if you convert it to a percent, and then maybe add one more decimal place, that's where you get the 12.9. So a lot of times we see these rates for the coronavirus to be in terms of, deaths per million or deaths per 100,000. It's just because the numbers are so low. Numbers like 0.0075% don't have as much meaning to us as, say, 75 per 100,000. So we usually report in the other way, but we could convert those numbers to percentages. So this number at 12, let's see, get rid of this. By the way, this one down here has no meaning, so I'm going to delete that out. And somehow my graph shrunk a little bit, so I just might have to reorder a little bit. Yeah, so that data value you can see, if I hover over it, is 12,885. But when you actually interpret this, you're gonna state 12.9% of all Alaskan residents have received the vaccine. So, and you do basically the same thing. Divide each of these numbers by 100,000, and that gives you the percent. And I think I select Michigan. No, here's Michigan. Yeah, so this one is going to be 6.96%. So you just say 7%, and that's why I've got 7% there. All right. Once we get this the way we want it, again, select the outside of it, come over here, copy as a picture, as shown on screen, go back to your Word document and paste it in. Okay, one more to go. In this last graph, I'm asking you to use case rates in Michigan counties. So is your county safer than other counties in the state of Michigan in terms of cases in the county? Let's take a look. I want you to construct a histogram with 7 classes. So here's what the data look like. And here's my fancy graph. For each, there are 83 counties in Michigan, and here they all are. Some of you are from Bay County, so I have that one highlighted. Some of you are from Midland, some of you are from Saginaw, so I have those 3 main selected. And so what we're going to do here is just select on these data values here. And then we're going to insert a chart. And here's the histogram chart. So I want to select the histogram, and there you can see it. All right. Come up here and maybe paste it up here somewhere. There it is. All right, so you can see that, this little graph and this fancy one that I made is something that you can do. Get over there. All right. So most of this is done. We've talked about how to do insert a text box. I talked about how to put labels on the boxes. Notice a little call out here to say Midland counties in here, whereas Bay and Saginaw counties are in here. But you can see these are the case death rates. And over here, these are the number of counties that have that particular rate. And you just have to spruce this guy up a little bit. I don't really like how they put the labels down here. They kind of group them as categories, but we know that for a histogram, we really should have a numerical scale down there. All right, so this is the histogram. I think I've shown you everything that you need to do. One thing that you might want to do when you click on one of these bars, it selects them all. If you want to select just one of the bars, you have to select again. Format the data series is what I want. And so here's the paint brush. And sometimes it allowed me to change the color. But if I'm in this menu and I just click on one bar, then I can change to solid fill, and I can change it to whatever color I want. Go to the next bar, again, change it to whatever color I want. And then you can go all the way through. This one here, we can change to bright red. All right, anyway, you can change all those in this menu. And when you think you've got a good graph, click on the outside, copy as a picture, as shown on screen, go back to your Word document, paste it in there, and now you've got all 5 graphs. Now, the only other thing that you need to do once you get all the 5 graphs in there is you have to say something interesting about the graph. You have to summarize it in words. It's part of what we do in here. And so right here, it says you need to include a summary describing each data. Describing each data set should appear with each graph. So underneath each of those graphs on your Word document, you're going to want to write in a summary. So just, after each graph, just come down here. Here's my summary of graph 1, blah, 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 blah. And you just write 3 summary sentences about what you notice in the data. You can talk about what the average is. You can talk about what the most popular category is, what's the maximum, what's the minimum. You now have some terms that you can use. Use those statistical terms in your descriptions. If it's a histogram, is it bell-shaped? Is it skewed right, skewed left? What does the data say about how different countries are doing in controlling the coronavirus? So, get right into the data and think about it, and think about what an appropriate summary would be. What would people like to know about this data? And you'd write that down. Okay, so let's say you've got summaries at the end of each one of your graphs describing what you see. You've got your name, everything's ready to go. So the last thing you're going to do is you're going to come up here and you're going to save as. And definitely save it as a Word document, but you're also going to want to save it as a PDF. If you save it as a PDF, then it'll arrive to me exactly, and then hit the export, and it will arrive, and it'll save it in the same folder where you're saving your Word file. And I'm not going to do it here, but just export it. Nothing's going to show up, but you will see a file in the same place where your Word file is. So inevitably, you'll have some questions as you're working through these. You'll want to do something on a graph, but you forget how to do it, or I didn't explain it well, or didn't explain it at all in the video. If that's the case, just stop by, share your screen, and I can walk you through how to add something fancy to your graph if that's what you want. So we'll stop there, and good luck with the project.